This happened a few years ago when I was 32. I went camping alone in the remote woods of Appalachia. I needed to collect samples for my biodiversity project. It seemed like a good way to unwind and enjoy nature. The first day was peaceful. I found a nice spot by a small stream, set up my tent, and started a fire. Everything felt right, at least for a while. Around midnight on the second night, I heard something. It was laughter. It echoed through the trees, distant but close. My heart sank. I thought maybe it was just my imagination. But then it came back, clearer this time. I sat straight up in my sleeping bag. My stomach felt tight. I didn't like the sound of it. Each night, the laughter returned. Sometimes, I heard rustling outside my tent. I kept telling myself it was just animals. But I felt wrong about it. I pulled the sleeping bag tighter around me and forced myself to work on my samples during the day. But the shadow of that laughter loomed over me. One day, I spotted strange marks on the trees. They looked like symbols, figures I couldn't identify. I peered at them, trying to make sense of it all. My skin felt prickly. It was like the forest was alive, watching me. I shook my head, trying to focus on my research. But every night, that laughter slipped back into my mind. On the fourth night, as I sat by the fire, I caught a glimpse of something. A flash of white between the trees. I blinked, but it was gone. Maybe it was my eyes playing tricks on me. Maybe it was my mind. But chills crawled down my spine. I felt I wasn't alone. I'd hear the laughter again, and it shook me. Then, the last night in those woods came. I couldn't sleep. My heart raced while I huddled by the fire. I thought about leaving. Something told me to go, but my curiosity pulled me back in. I needed to know what was out there. I called into the darkness, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence. Then, laughter erupted all around me. I jumped to my feet, pulse pounding. I felt like something was closing in. I glanced around, expecting to see someone, but it was empty. My palms were sweaty as I called out again, "Is someone there?" Suddenly, I saw it. A childlike figure stepped out from the shadows. Just standing there, staring. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I shouted, "Are you okay?" My voice echoed back to me as the figure just stood frozen. Then, in a blink, it was gone. I felt like I was going to be sick. Panic surged through me. I didn't want to be there anymore. I dashed back to my tent in a frenzy, heart racing. The laughter came back again, this time so loud, it felt like it was inside my head. I froze, feeling eyes on me. I took a deep breath. It was too much. I couldn't explain what I experienced or what I saw that night. But I knew, whatever was out there, it wasn't finished with me yet. I barely slept that night. Every rustle, every whisper of wind sent me straight back to that freezing moment when I had seen that figure. I huddled in my tent, gripping the flashlight like it was a lifeline. Just before dawn broke, the laughter returned, faint but lingering like a taunt. Anxiety gnawed at my insides as I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. But deep down, I knew better. When the daylight finally crept in, I gathered my gear, wanting to leave this cursed campsite behind. The sun filtered through the trees, but the light couldn't chase away the shadows that felt all too real. I decided to head deeper into the woods, hoping to cleanse my mind with nothing but the sound of my footsteps and the chirping of birds. As I walked, I kept an eye out for more of those strange symbols. They had unsettled me, almost felt like a warning. Just as I stumbled onto a path overgrown with thorny vines, I saw another symbol carved into a large rock. This one was different, much larger and intricately detailed. It depicted a figure that looked eerily similar to the childlike creature I had seen the night before, its arms raised in a strange manner. My heart raced. I reached out and traced the carving with my fingertips. A chill shot through me. It felt wrong, almost alive. Just as I pulled my hand back, I heard something. A soft whispering, like children playing. I could almost make out words, but it was too distorted to understand. "Hello?" I called out again, my voice trembling. But the moment I did, the whispering stopped. Silence enveloped me. I felt the air grow heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I spun around, inspecting my surroundings. Each shadow felt like it was watching me. Deciding to push my fear aside, I pressed on, determined to continue my research. But the further I walked, the more I felt something was off. The air grew thick, almost suffocating. And then I heard it again, the laughter. It rang through the trees, mocking me. Without even realizing it, I had taken a different route. The familiar trails were gone, replaced by a labyrinth of trees. I felt disoriented. I stumbled into a small clearing. In the middle stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its wood gray and rotting. Curiosity pulled me closer. It felt like an invitation or a trap. As I approached, I noticed something beside the cabin door. It was a carved wooden figure, resembling the same childlike creature I had seen. This one had a hollow expression, a wide grin that sent ice through my veins. I stepped back, heart racing. Then I noticed a faint glow coming from inside the cabin. I hesitated. A part of me urged to turn back, but I needed answers. Just as I reached for the cabin door, a loud crash came from within, followed by the unmistakable sound of laughter. My blood ran cold. Whatever was inside was waiting for me. "Breathe," I told myself. "You can leave." But something deep down told me to stay. And that's when I saw it. A shadow darted past the window, swift and silent. I heard a whisper, clearer now, "Come play with us." I froze. For a moment, I felt like an unwitting actor in a play I never auditioned for. As the laughter gained volume, I finally realized I wasn't just here to observe. I was being drawn into something too big for me to comprehend. I needed to decide quickly. And with every ounce of courage I had left, I pushed the door open. As the door creaked open, I stepped into the dimness of the cabin. The musty smell hit me first, thick and suffocating. I scanned the room quickly, my heart pounding. Dust motes floated in the air, dancing in the weak light streaming through broken windows. Old furniture sat haphazardly, draped in layers of dust and cobwebs. I turned my flashlight on, its beam slicing through the gloom. The glow fell on a table cluttered with old toys, dolls with missing eyes, rusted tin cars, and a wind-up monkey with one arm raised as if beckoning me to come closer. My stomach dropped. They looked decades old but recent enough to feel unsettling. Then I heard it again. Laughter, soft yet insistent, echoing off the walls. I felt a chill creep down my spine as I realized it wasn't just laughter. It was playful, almost inviting. I turned toward the sound, compelled to follow. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. It felt foolish, but I needed to know if someone else was here. No response. Just the echo of my own voice fading into the cabin. Feeling stupid for even hoping for an answer, I ventured deeper. As my foot caught on the edge of a loose floorboard, I stumbled, and my flashlight flickered. In that fleeting moment of darkness, I thought I saw a figure darting behind a corner, too quick to identify. "Is someone there?" I asked, a hint of desperation creeping into my tone. Silence. Just as I was about to turn back, the laughter erupted again, louder this time, a cacophony of joy that felt wrong in such a derelict place. It echoed in my ears, almost intoxicating. I shook my head, trying to clear the trap it was weaving around me. I didn't belong here. That's when I noticed something glimmering beneath a pile of peeling newspapers. I knelt down to investigate, pushing the papers aside. My heart raced when I uncovered a small, cracked mirror. As I rubbed the dirt off, I glimpsed my own reflection, but just behind me, something shifted. I whipped around, flashlight beam dancing wildly, yet nothing was there. But the laughter lingered, taunting me. I stood up, backing away. Fear coiled tightly in my chest. The air felt charged, and I could sense I was no longer alone. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. The sound reverberated around me, and panic surged in every fiber of my being. "Let me out!" I shouted, pounding my fists against the door. But it wouldn't budge, as if held by an unseen force. The laughter crescendoed, echoing like a sinister chorus of children. It felt like they were encircling me, inching closer, their playful demeanor twisted into something menacing. Just when I thought I would lose my mind in the cabin's grasp, I heard a distinct thud from above. Heavy footsteps on the creaky floorboards of an upper level. This was no mere trick of the mind, there was definitely someone else here. Desperation fueled my next move. I had to figure out what awaited me. I turned and raced toward the back of the cabin, searching for another exit. The laughter followed me, echoing and reverberating, like it wanted to usher me into something far worse. That's when I saw something moving in the corner. A shadow, longer than my own. As it stepped into the light, my heart sank. It was another figure, this one taller and more defined, its eyes locked on me. Everything came crashing down in an instant: the laughter, the shadows, the muffled thuds. The door was no longer just a barrier, it was the only thing between me and an unknown danger. I pounded the door one more time and shouted, "Let me out." But the shadows whispered back, "You're not supposed to leave." And that's when I knew I didn't just open a door. I had unleashed something I couldn't control. The figure stood there, obscured in shadows but with a presence that felt overwhelmingly solid. My heart raced as I debated my next move. Should I confront it or run for my life? "What do you want?" I barely managed to whisper, fear wrapping around my throat like a vice. The eyes of the figure seemed to widen, catching the beam of my flashlight. They glimmered with an unnatural light, and for a moment, I thought I could see something in them: hunger, maybe? The laughter swelled again, swirling around like a storm, pulling me deeper into its chaos. I felt dizzy as the echoes bounced off the walls. The figure stepped forward, moving slowly, deliberately. I stumbled backpedaling into the dust-laden room, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The toys on the table seemed to rattle, their ghosts awakening, as if they were joining the laughter. I noticed the wind-up monkey still with its arm outstretched, as if eager to pull me into whatever game was being played. "Stop!" I shouted, turning my flashlight toward the figure. "Stay back!" The light flickered, threatening to be snuffed out, but I willed it to stay strong. Attacking the darkness felt like my only option, but my voice trembled as I said, "Who are you?" The figure stopped, its lips barely moving, forming words I couldn't hear. I strained to hear over the laughter that morphed into whispers, wrapping around my thoughts. "Come join us," they seemed to sing, but the invitation was twisted, like a thorny vine promising warmth while coiling tighter. Suddenly, a crash echoed from somewhere above. The sound of wood splintering sent a shock of adrenaline through me. "I need to get out of here." I turned and made for the back of the cabin again. But as I did, the toys on the table erupted into a cacophony of laughter, as if they were mocking my fear. I gritted my teeth and pushed on. As I approached a door at the end of the room, I quickly realized it was locked. I shook the handle angrily, frustration boiling within me. "Let me out. Why won't you let me out?" The figure in the shadows seemed to hesitate, then took a step toward me, its hand outstretched as if to offer solace. But I saw the darkness curling around it, feeding off my fear. I didn't want to know what that hand could do. I screamed, my voice lost in the laughter of children, unending and mocking. I shot back toward the main room. That's when I saw it. The mirror I'd uncovered earlier now reflecting not just my terrified face but also a flicker of movement behind me. It wasn't just a figure, it was a swirl of smaller shadows, like children dancing. "Please, no!" I shouted, despair clawing at my chest. I didn't want to play their sinister game. But then I felt it. A cold breeze creeping down my back, a thing of ice that made me freeze in place. I turned, and at that moment, I was struck by a thought: what if they had all done this before? What if I was just another lost soul in this horrible game? The last thing I saw before the mirror went dark was the figure smiling, lips curled in a sneer as echoes of laughter escalated around me. I felt pulled back, as if the cabin itself was inhaling me. And just as I braced for what was next, the darkness swallowed everything. I blinked and the darkness faded, replaced by an eerie, dim light. I was sprawled on a cold, hard floor, rattled and confused. I pushed myself up, my palms sweaty and shaky. The overwhelming laughter had vanished, replaced by an unsettling silence that pressed onto me like a heavy blanket. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed I was no longer in the cabin. Instead, I lay in a narrow hallway with peeling wallpaper and flickering light bulbs overhead. My throat felt raw from shouting, but I couldn't remember if I had called for help or screamed in terror. I rubbed my eyes and scanned the walls. They were lined with forgotten family photos, their subjects looking at me with hollow eyes. The families seemed so happy, yet their smiles felt forced, like a mask hiding something darker. I pushed myself to my feet, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I took a step forward, praying that whatever had been hunting me was gone. There were no toys here, no shadowy figures. Only a single door at the end of the hall beckoned to me like an escape route. I moved cautiously, my footfalls echoing ominously. The closer I got, the more I felt a strange pull toward the door. It loomed at the end like an answer I desperately needed. I reached for the doorknob, heart pounding in my chest as I twisted it. The handle turned smoothly, revealing darkness beyond. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. The room was cold and barren, lit only by a single flickering bulb overhead. In the center stood an old table covered in dust. But it was what lay on the table that made my stomach drop. A child's drawing. I recognized it immediately. It was a crude but familiar image: a girl with dark hair and wide eyes, surrounded by shadowy figures with wide mouths. My hand shot to my mouth. I knew that girl. It was me. Chills cascaded down my spine as I picked it up. The shadows in the drawing seemed to dance, mimicking the laughter I had heard before. Below the drawing, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Join us." A wave of nausea hit me. In that moment, I knew what I needed to do. I couldn't let whatever this was take me. Clutching the drawing tightly, I turned to exit the room, but before I could reach the door, I heard a sound that made my heart drop: soft giggles behind me. I spun around, breath hitching in my throat as I saw them. Small figures emerged from the darkness, their eyes glowing. Shadows of children, just like in the drawing. They swirled around me, giggling with that same mocking laughter. I could hardly breathe. "No! Get away!" I shouted, backing against the wall. The children paused and looked at each other, their heads tilting in unison, as if deciding something. Then I noticed something on the floor beneath the table: a toy, just like the wind-up monkey. It was old and rusted, but somehow it radiated a dark charm. I picked it up, unsure what else to do. Maybe it could spark an avenue for escape. As I turned back to face the children, ready to confront whatever they were up to, I stumbled over something behind me. Falling hard, the toy slipped from my grasp and rolled under the table. The giggling ceased, their focus shifting to where the toy had gone. That was my chance. I launched myself toward the door, adrenaline surging. As I reached for the handle, I heard them call out, "Come join us." I threw the door open, sprinting into the night. But outside, the oppressive woods loomed, and the whispers of my old fears echoed once more. I had escaped one darkness, but a deeper unknown lay ahead. The night was still, but the darkness felt alive, wrapping around me like a shroud. I stumbled into the humid air, gasping for breath, as the sheer strangeness of what I had just seen began to settle in. My heart raced, and I glanced back to the cabin door. It stood ajar, the dim light like a beacon in a stormy sea, but I couldn't go back. I turned to face the woods. The trees loomed tall and menacing, their branches twisting like fingers reaching for me. The laughter of the shadow children echoed in my mind, a haunting melody that made me shiver. I needed to get away, but where would I go? With shaky legs, I started forward into the dark woods. Each step felt heavier than the last, the ground beneath me uneven and treacherous. I glanced behind, expecting to see the figures trailing me, but instead there was only silence now. I pressed on, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I could outrun whatever was lurking. A twig snapped nearby, and I froze, my heart pounding again. I listened intently, the sound reverberating through the trees. "Hello?" I called, trying to sound braver than I felt. Nothing. Just the rustling leaves and the distant call of a night owl. I turned back to the path ahead, but then I saw a flicker of light through the trees. It was faint, but it pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. My instinct screamed at me to avoid it, but curiosity gnawed at my resolve. I crept closer, driven by something I couldn't understand. As I reached the source of the glow, my breath caught in my throat. There, in a small clearing, stood an old campfire, embers still glowing warmly, surrounded by several half-buried logs. The air was thick with the scent of burnt wood and something sweeter, almost inviting. I approached cautiously, scanning the area for any signs of life. "Hello? Is anyone there?" My voice barely broke the stillness. I felt exposed, standing in the clearing, lit only by the dying firelight. Just as I was about to turn away, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. A figure stepped out from behind a tree. It was a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned dress that seemed out of place. Her hair was long and dark, flowing like shadows in the night. "You've come," she said, her voice soft yet filled with an unsettling echo. Confusion washed over me. "Who are you?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes, which glimmered like coals. "I'm the keeper of their laughter. You're drawn to it, aren't you?" I backed away, fear swelling in my chest. "No. I just want to leave. I don't belong here." She took a step closer. "But this is where you must choose. Will you join them, or will you run?" Just then, from behind her, the shadow children emerged from the darkness, their giggles returning. They encircled me, their smiles wide, filled with a twisted glee. Panic surged through me. I turned on my heel and bolted back into the trees, branches whipping against my face as I tore through the underbrush. Every instinct screamed at me to escape, to put as much distance between me and that woman and her haunting invitation. But as I ran, the laughter followed, echoing and mocking. And then, just like that, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, the world was muted. I lay on the damp forest floor, struggling to make sense of what had happened. The laughter was gone, but a heavy silence pressed down on me. I pushed myself up, my muscles stiff and sore. My heart was still racing, but now I felt an eerie calm settle around me. I tried to remember which direction I had come from, but the trees all looked the same. A sinking feeling gripped me as I realized I might be lost. I pushed through the brambles, searching for a path, but found only tangled roots and shadowed brush. The faint glow of the campfire was now a ghost of my mind. Then, unexpectedly, I noticed something on the ground. A glint of silver caught my eye. I knelt down to examine it. It was a pendant, shaped like a crescent moon. The metal felt cool in my hand. Something about it made my skin prickle with recognition, but I couldn't recall why. I slipped it into my pocket, thinking it might help me find a way back or maybe even answer some questions. As I stood, a rustling sound made me freeze. I turned slowly, every nerve ending on high alert. From behind a nearby tree, a boy appeared. He couldn't have been more than 12 years old, with wild hair and dirt-smudged cheeks. His eyes were wide, filled with fear but also an odd curiosity. "You saw her, didn't you?" he asked, his voice trembling. I narrowed my eyes. "Who are you? What do you mean?" He took a step forward, glancing back as if worried someone was watching. "The keeper. The shadow woman. You saw her by the fire." I nodded, my heart racing again. "You have to run," he insisted, looking back over his shoulder. "Before they come for you." "Who's coming?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I felt an urge to trust him, though I didn't know why. "Her laughter brings them," he replied, his brow knitting in fear. "They want to keep you there. Once you join them, you can't leave." My vision blurred with anxiety. "I want to join them. What do you think will happen?" "They'll take you." He took another step closer, desperation coating his words. "I lost my sister to them. I can help you get out of here." A chill passed through me. What he said rang true, deeply unsettling. If I didn't escape, would I end up like that girl who wandered into the shadows? The boy reached out, his hand trembling. Again, I felt the urge to trust him. "Show me the way," I said, willing to follow the stranger if it meant staying alive. As we moved through the forest, I could hear faint sounds behind us, footsteps, whispers. The air was thick with a sense of urgency. But then, reality twisted once again. Ahead, I spotted flickering lights up ahead. There had to be a way out. "That's where they gather," the boy warned, stepping back. "You can't go there." But a compulsion tugged at me. The lights pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing me closer. I hesitated, torn between running toward light and safety, or trusting my only ally, the boy who warned me of impending doom. Then, I heard it, the laughter, louder and more jarring than before. It was an invitation, a promise, and a threat all at once. I turned back toward him, searching his face for answers, but it was too late. The light glimmered invitingly, beckoning, and I felt myself moving toward it, against my will. As I stumbled forward, the forest around me faded. The shadows shifted, twisting into shapes that felt alive. My heart thundered in my chest as I ventured closer to the lights. I glanced back at the boy, but it was too late. He was a distance away, shouting something I couldn't hear over the din of the laughter. "Stop!" he called, but I felt invincible, drawn deeper into the luminous glow. Suddenly, the laughter morphed into something sharp, almost painful, as if it were ripping through my thoughts. I clenched my fists, knowing I needed to resist, but the light was intoxicating. I broke into a run, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on my back. The branches scratched at my skin, but I couldn't stop. The trees thinned, and eventually, I broke through into an open clearing. Immediately, my breath hitched at the sight before me. A group of people stood in a circle, their faces illuminated by floating orbs of light. They all wore strange, flowing garments, their expressions frozen in time, looking both joyful and eerily composed. In the center of the circle stood a woman, her long hair billowing like smoke around her. She looked familiar, too familiar. "Join us," she said, her voice silky and sweet, sending chills down my spine. My instinct screamed that I needed to escape, but my legs felt heavy, reluctant to move away. The boy emerged behind me, breathless but urgent. "Don't listen to her," he shouted. "She's the keeper. You can't let her take you." It was as if her gaze locked onto mine. I felt my thoughts splinter and bend. I wanted so desperately to join them, to share in their laughter. But a memory tugged at me, the boy's sister, lost in the shadows, a fate I didn't want to share. "Run!" he urged, seizing my arm. His grip jolted me out of the trance. I blinked rapidly, shaking off the fog clouding my mind. With a surge of energy, I turned to flee. But it was too late. The laughter escalated, echoing all around the clearing. The glowing orbs drew closer, spiraling like angry bees. I sprinted through the trees, desperate to escape, but the laughter wrapped around me, a tangible force that threatened to drag me back. The boy was by my side, his face set in determination. "Stay close," he shouted, steering me through the maze of branches. The clearing grew distant behind us, but the laughter still called, whispering my name like a lost friend. That was when I heard it, a dull thud, like something heavy falling. Instinctively, I stopped and turned to see the ground where I had just run. The soil rippled as if breathing. In the dim glimmer of the moonlight, shapes began to rise, merging out of the earth. "Keep running," the boy yelled, but I was rooted in place, eyes wide with disbelief. A hand, skeletal and dark, broke through the surface, followed by another. They reached for me. Fear surged through me again. This was all too real. My heart raced as I felt the pull of the glowing clearing still beckoning me. Then everything went dark. A shadow loomed in front of me, larger and more menacing than anything I had ever seen. The laughter grew to a fever pitch, filling my mind as I strained to remember who I was, what I was escaping, and why I had listened to the whispering call. I turned to run, but the boy was gone. I was alone. And that's when I realized I couldn't remember how I got here or what I was really running from. Panic washed over me as the darkness pressed in. I stumbled backward, heart racing. The ground felt alive beneath my feet, shifting like it had its own heartbeat. My instincts told me to run, but my legs were frozen. Then, a soft glow flickered nearby. Against the backdrop of night, a faint silhouette began to emerge. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. That's when I saw it, a figure in a tattered cloak, its hood drawn low. The edges of its form shimmered unnaturally, like a reflection in broken glass. "Help me," it whispered, the voice barely audible yet laced with urgency. I felt compelled to step closer, but fear anchored me. I hesitated, torn between the impulse to assist and the dread filling the air. "Please." The figure took a step forward, revealing a pale face beneath the hood. My breath caught, the resemblance was uncanny. It was a younger version of me. "No," I gasped. "This isn't real." But the figure just nodded, as if it understood my skepticism. "You must listen. The Keeper is watching. She knows you're here." The warning sent chills through me. I hadn't even thought about the woman from the clearing. Just then, the laughter returned, mocking and joyous, echoing through the trees. I could feel it creeping back into my mind, tugging at my thoughts, trying to drown out reason. I knew I couldn't linger here, but the pull toward my doppelganger was strong. "Get away from her." The boy's voice sliced through the night air, bringing with it a sense of clarity. I turned, relief crashing over me as he dashed back into the clearing, urgency marking his every step. "Over here," he shouted, his eyes wide with fear. "We need to go." The cloaked figure's expression shifted to something darker. "Don't listen to him," it said, voice laced with venom. "He wants to trap you just as they did before." The word sent a surge of ice through my veins. Had someone tried to trap me before? Who were these people? "No!" I shouted, hands clenching at my sides. I had no idea what to believe. Fear churned in my stomach, and I took a cautious step back from the figure, breaking the spell of its gaze. With a final anguished look, the figure retreated, fading back into the shadows. I turned to the boy, desperate for answers. "Why did you leave me? Who was that?" "There's no time," he yelled, grabbing my wrist. "We have to move now, before she finds us." Before I could respond, the darkness thickened, and the ground beneath us trembled. The laughter coalesced into a roar, the sharp sound of it rattling my bones. I felt the ground shifting again, scraping and pulling. "Let us go," he urged, pulling me along. As we dashed through the trees, an image flashed in my mind, a memory from a long time ago. A home on the edge of a dark forest, whispers of fairy tales, and shadows that danced just beyond sight. A warning I never heeded. Suddenly, a pain shot through my chest as a familiar face stared back at me from the shadows. It was the girl, the boy's sister. "You're too late," she said. "You cannot escape." Just then, the earth quaked harder. An icy wind whipped through the trees, carrying her words with it. My heart raced, and I felt the weight of everything closing in. "This way!" the boy shouted, pulling me with urgency. We broke free from the trees into another clearing, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was still trapped. The trees whispered secrets behind us as we ran, but I had to stay focused. I couldn't let them take me, too. I needed to find the truth hiding in the darkness. The clearing opened up into a vast space, the moonlight pouring down and casting soft shadows of the trees surrounding us. My lungs burned from the exertion, and panic still surged through me, but the boy didn't falter. He led me deeper into the wilderness, away from the nightmares that chased us. I glanced back once, expecting to see the figures and hear their laughter, but the woods felt eerily still, heavy silence pressing down as if the forest itself held its breath. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's out here?" "A place they can't follow," he replied urgently, his grip tightening around my wrist. "The keeper's powers are strong, but there's a boundary just past that ridge. If we get there, we might be safe." "Safe from what?" I questioned, half the words slipping out as fear welled up within me. "From the children, the keeper. They can't leave their domain," he explained, glancing back as we pushed through underbrush and low-hanging branches. "But their reach is long, and they will try to keep us away from the light that can save us." "What light?" I asked, doubts creeping in. He paused and turned to look at me. "The sun rises at dawn. If we reach the ridge before then." A sharp sound cut through the air, like the cracking of a whip. My heart sank as the sense of dread returned in waves. The laughter that had seemed to recede was suddenly there again, echoing from all around, driving me to run faster. "Keep going," the boy urged, his voice edged with urgency. "Don't look back." So I ran. We sprinted through the thicket, the laughter growing louder, as if it pulsed with life. The ground shook beneath me, and faces began to emerge from the shadows, twisted, crying out like plaintive whispers. I squeezed my eyes shut and pushed onward, desperate to focus on where we were heading. Then, a flicker in the distance caught my eye. A pale light glimmered just beyond the ridge. My pulse quickened at the thought of escape, a new dawn breaking, a chance to flee the darkness. But as we neared the crest, the sensation of being pulled back grew stronger. I felt a sharp tug in my heart, an anchor tethering me to the haunting echoes of the laughter. "Almost there," the boy urged, and I pressed on, lungs burning, fear gripping my chest. Then, just as we reached the ridge, I stumbled, falling to my knees as the laughter morphed into a powerful chorus. "She wants you," a multitude of voices whispered, drowning out my thoughts. I tried to rise, but something held me down. I felt the shadows closing in on all sides, a greater force than I could fight. "Come back." The keeper's voice rang through the din, sweet yet laced with malice. "You know you want to play. Come join us." "No," I screamed, tearing my gaze from the approaching shadows and fixing it on the glowing light at the edge of the clearing. "I want tea." With sheer desperation, I focused on the light, pushing through the grasping tendrils of darkness that clawed at me. The boy stood firm beside me, his expression fiercely determined. "We can't give in," he shouted, pulling me up. "We have to break free now, before it closes in." Summoning every ounce of willpower, I took a deep breath and ran towards the light with him. The shadows seemed to convulse, reaching out toward us, fighting against our escape, but the brilliant glow surged closer as we pushed through with every ounce of strength. And then, just as the darkness clawed at my back, I burst through the ridge. A blinding light enveloped us as dawn broke the horizon. The cacophony faded, laughter dissipating into the morning mist, until silence wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Breathlessly, I turned to look behind us. The trees that had shadowed our path stood still, their sentience vanishing like smoke in the wind. There were no figures chasing, no laughter ringing through the hills. Just the quiet of the morning. But my heart still raced as echoes of the night flickered in my mind. Thoughts of the keeper, the shadow children, and the darkness that had tried to claim me lingered. Questions started brewing. Had this all been real? Would those shadows come back? Could I ever return to that part of the forest? I still think about it sometimes, I finally said, looking at the boy as he breathed heavily beside me. He met my gaze, understanding glimmering in his eyes. What we left behind, the boy didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the gleaming horizon, where the sunlight spilled across the tree line, still not fully revealing what lay within the essence of the forest. I realized there were questions I might never have answers to, mysteries that would remain woven in the fabric of that chilling night, leaving a haunting echo in my heart. I might have escaped, but could I ever fully break away from what had almost entangled me? As I took a step away from the edge of the ridge, I felt a chill dance down my spine, but I refused to look back. I moved forward, embracing the warmth of the dawn.